Jay Johnson, Zac Cowan, Jared Jones recap one of the most epic wins in LSU baseball history, and we start getting you ready for the ship. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Exhale if you can. Okay, let's get it. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. This episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. LSU beats Arkansas 6-5 in one of the most dramatic games any of us will ever see. And for a team that has won 7 national championships and owns quite literally the greatest win in the history of the sport, 1996, the national championship, Warren Morris's dramatic walk-off home run. Anytime you talk about one of the most epic wins ever, most dramatic wins ever, it's not hyperbole. It has to stack up. And this one certainly did that. And LSU beats Arkansas 6-5. Jay Johnson was somewhat at a loss after the game.
But tonight, I said this literally probably 2 years ago to the day, the walk-off homer, Tommy against Wake Forest. Like, I felt something in my body I've never felt before, and greatest moment of my life, and it now has it tied for first with the 9th inning with Jared Jones, line drive over the second baseman's head, Luis Hernandez hustling around second base. I didn't know you could run like that.
Good little wheels.
Little wheels. I would coach this team forever. I've been telling him that probably since.
He said since April. Excuse me, I cut it off short, but said I'd coach this team forever. There is certainly a special makeup and component that this team has, and it's also very clear, and it's true in every sport. It's cliche, but the cliches exist because there's morsels of truth in them. That teams take on the personality and characteristic of their coach. And a lot of times you hear players speak to the media, which are basically the coaches speaking through their players. They reiterate things their coach tells them. And it's very obvious that Jay Johnson is part of that. Now, this was an incredible thing to behold. The Skeens Louder game 2 years ago with the Tommy White walk-off was different because that was a scoreless tie going into extra innings. There was two big leaguers and great defensive plays, and one swing by Tommy White sent LSU to the championship. This was a thing where you didn't have Skeens and Louder starting. You had Cowan and Beidelshees starting from LSU and Arkansas. This was not the heavyweight pitching matchup. This was a bullpen day that we were all expecting a very high-scoring game, setting the stage if Arkansas won for Thursday, which would very likely be Cade Anderson against Gabe Gackle. That's what we were all thinking would transpire. And as they always say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Zac Cowan was absolutely magnificent in this game, as was Beidelshees from, Beidelshees. It's late. I'm sorry. Who went 5 innings of 2-run ball. Cowan 5 1/3 of 1-run ball. Those guys were magnificent, and it set the stage for a dramatic ending. In the previous episode, I did our immediate reaction. And so you can listen on podcast or find on YouTube my immediate reaction video. And I spent an hour on that show and went through the entire game. And I would encourage you to go listen to or watch that, however you get podcasts or on YouTube, to get the full breakdown of the game. But what's kind of incredible about this one is this was a scoreless tie until the top of the 4th when Helfrich hit the solo homer. And not only was that sort of this pivotal moment because of the homer, he was the leadoff batter of the inning. And immediately after that, we're thinking maybe this is the end of the rope for Cowan. But all he did after that in the fourth was go strikeout, fly out. In the fifth, 3 groundouts, a 10-pitch inning, and then he struck out Beheva Aloy to start the sixth. He was only pulled after allowing a single in the sixth when they singled against the shift. So even after Zac Cowan got that moment where he gave up the home run and you're down 1-0, he went and retired 7 straight hitters, and the only guy that got on against him because you shifted. So he was absolutely magnificent. But even still, when you look at the game itself, Helfrich's homer broke a scoreless tie. Then Jake Brown's RBI pinch hit single gave LSU a 2-1 lead. Then Helfrich grounded into a fielder's choice, and there was the error where Jones couldn't come up with the ball where they were trying to. Chase Shores made the pitch. He got the ground ball you needed for the double play, and Dickinson turned it to Jones, and Jones couldn't come up with the ball, and 2 runs scored. So all of a sudden now they're up 3-2. That's a third lead change in the ball game. Then Jones ties it. Then the Thomas single gives Arkansas in the ninth, gives Arkansas a 2-run lead. Then LSU ultimately would tie it and take the lead in the ninth. I mean, you had 6 lead changes in this ball game, 6 lead changes from the fourth inning on. It was a different type of game from what we saw with Tommy White and the Skeens Louder game a couple of years ago. But it was still absolutely incredible to watch this thing unfold the way that it did. And, Jay Johnson said it pretty succinctly about this team, which is now 2 wins away from the national championship.
At a loss for words, and there's so many thoughts, and literally it's like, yeah, it's about getting to the ultimate where we're at, and I'm so proud of them for that. But it's literally about getting 5 more days with them, and this is a model team, and there haven't been much of this. I mean, it's been a consistent effort from whatever August 24 first team meeting through the 9th inning tonight. And I mean, think about the walk-off wins we had at home against these guys, against Tennessee, and they just stay with it. The mental toughness is really like nothing I've ever seen before. And the investment in the team. I mean, we got guys that are going to go to pro baseball, but it's all about this. I mean, it's not just a saying. Like at LSU baseball, the expectation of the players, I will always place the needs of the team above my own. And we have so many examples of that. And I'm just really thankful. I mean, if you ask me if I had a word or an emotion, it's just really thankful.
One guy that certainly exemplifies what Jay Johnson's talking about there is Jake Brown. We've talked about Jake a lot on this show this year, and I understand that some of you might be weary of hearing me talk about it. It's one of the things where I've disagreed with how Jay Johnson has handled. Jake Brown is one of your best players. He's hitting .330. He's a 6'2", 200-pound freak athlete who is literally the fastest guy and best athlete on your team. Straight line speed, or you do all of the different athletic tests, he is the best athlete on this baseball team. He's a 5-tool guy. He's got a great arm. He was a high school pitcher who was drafted as a pitcher. He's got a great arm. He's got a great glove. He's got great speed. He can hit for average, hit for power. He's a 5-tool player. He's a big leaguer. Jake Brown is a big leaguer. And he sat the bench in this game today for Josh Pearson, who is not a big leaguer. And that's no disrespect to Josh Pearson. He's a great college baseball player who, a kid from Louisiana who always wanted to play for LSU and has given it his all during his time here. And he's had big moments for LSU. But you're benching a big leaguer, a future big leaguer in that situation. But Jake Brown waited when his time came in the 6th inning in a pinch hit opportunity against Gabe Gackle, who was sent in by Dave Van Horn to end the game and force a game on Thursday. I mean, Gackle's the guy who struck out 10 LSU Tigers on Saturday and was awesome. We were expecting to see potentially Anderson Gackle on Thursday if it got there. And Dave Van Horn said, I got to save my season. I'm going to get Gackle right now in this situation when I got a 1-0 lead in the 6th. And Jake Brown goes the other way and ropes a 2 RBI single to give LSU the lead. That's what Jay Johnson's talking about there, about guys who will play their role, put the needs of the team ahead of their individual goals or whatever the case may be. So what a fantastic day it was. And there were there were a lot of gigantic performances in this game. But Zac Cowan giving you 5 1/3 and Jared Jones with 2 monster, if you'll forgive the Stephen Milam pun, but monster swings in this ball game, including one we'll talk about for as long as they play baseball at LSU. We'll let you hear what those 2 guys had to say about their performances when we return. Locked on LSU, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, your investments, your spending, all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, plan long-term goals. You can manage your money with your partner, and that's smoother than ever. Track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. We talked so much about who was going to get the ball for LSU to start. Cowan, Newt were the most obvious choices. Could they go to Shores? Would Ianson potentially be a starter on short rest? Jay Johnson said after the game that it was never a doubt that Zac Cowan was getting the ball in this ball game. And afterwards, Cowan, in that post-game press conference, discussed what that meant from him having the trust of his coaches. And even after this answer, listen to Jay Johnson interject.
Means the world. I mean, it means the world when I have the trust from the coaching staff like I do, and the defense behind me. And yeah, like the second half or last half of the season didn't obviously go as planned, but I mean, it's going out there and competing every time I'm out there, so.
Can I correct you? It was a couple outings didn't go as planned. This guy was the best reliever in college baseball this year.
First of all, I think Jay Johnson in that setting going to bat for his player is massive. It's a massive way to build trust and good faith. But I also think he's being genuine. Let's not forget the fact that Zac Cowan was a first-team All-SEC relief pitcher this year. Yes, in 4 of the last 5 outings before this one, which was amazing. I mean, he saved his best for last. But in 4 of his last 5, it wasn't great. That's fair. But as we've talked about, Zac Cowan made 22 appearances this year. And in 18 of the 22, he's been awesome. I referenced it before, but in the first 16 outings of the year for Zac Cowan, he allowed a total of 8 runs. His ERA was sub-2. He was your closer. He was awesome for you. I mean, we talked about it all year. There were 4 guys who, as you were trying to find guys in the bullpen you could trust, it was Anderson, Ianson, and then Cowan and Evans. I mean, they were synonymous. Those 4 guys were the ones you knew you can trust. And when Cowan started to wobble in those outings, it was more than, it was concerning for certain. But, you look at what Cowan's been able to do. The 5 runs against Little Rock in the regional final were disappointing. The 3 runs in relief at South Carolina in an inning and 2/3. The 2 runs against A&M. He pitched in 2 games against A&M where in both instances he gave up a couple of runs. And those were the 2 losses against A&M when they lost the series. But the exception was Arkansas. The 2 bad outings against A&M, the bad outings against South Carolina and Arkansas, right in the middle of that. The 2 bad outings against A&M, the bad outings against South Carolina and Little Rock, sandwiched in between those was the home game against Arkansas, the 5-4 win on the walk-off when he came out of the bullpen in the extra inning games that went to 1:17 a.m. and he gave you 3 innings of shutout baseball on just 2 hits, struck out 3, walked 2. He was fantastic. And he got right again against this Arkansas lineup where he went 5 1/3 of 1-run ball. The solo homer is the only run he gave up on 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, and did not walk anybody, which was so critical for Zac Cowan. Not walking anybody was just massive. He walked 2 in that game against Little Rock. He walked 3 actually in the game against 2 in the game against Arkansas. He walked 1 against South Carolina. His ability to command the strike zone was massive. And I don't know if you're going to need Zac Cowan again the rest of the way, because you got to win 2 games and you've got Cade Anderson and Anthony Einson queued up. And you'll have Kason Evans ready to close the game. You'll have Chase Shores ready to close the game for you. And in theory, you could go Anderson, Evans, Einson, Shores, and win the national championship, and nobody else pitches. I mean, it may come down to that. But this is also tremendous confidence builder, I'm sure, for Zac Cowan to go out there against one of the best lineups in college baseball and perform the way that he did. That 5 1/3 was a season high when you absolutely had to have it. It was so reminiscent of Nate Ackenhausen 2 years ago in a similar spot where you were looking for someone to step up before you got to, hopefully that year, Skeens on the Thursday against Wake Forest. This instance, you were trying to avoid Thursday and you needed someone to step up, and Zac Cowan, mission accomplished. 5 1/3 of 1-run baseball, kept LSU in it, and ultimately the offense got going. And the offense was paced on this day by Jared Jones, a guy who has certainly had his struggles at times, but an 0 for 5 with 5 strikeout day against Arkansas on Saturday. But how about Jared Jones today? 3 for 5, 2 RBI, the solo homer, and the game-winning knock for LSU. Now, he was 3 for 5, and he did strike out twice. And one of the strikeouts was pretty significant as well, because it was a situation where you had in the 6th, you let off with a double, you went hit by pitch, they went to Gackle, you sacrifice bunted, and then, no, forgive me, it wasn't in the 6th. It was to end, it was at the, forgive me. I'm struggling to find my notes. Anyway, bottom line is Jared Jones came up with 3 hits, and 2 of them were massive. The solo homer that tied it at 3, and ultimately the game-winning hit. And after the game, Jones talked about the big moments he had in this ballgame.
I hadn't been seeing Geichel very well this week. He struck me out like 5 times, I think, in 5 at-bats. And it was all on sliders. And my approach is always to be on time for a fastball. And I was lucky enough to get one in the zone and put a good swing on it to tie the game. And then there in the 9th, they brought in Jimenez, and he's a great pitcher. Got to respect his slider, and was able to just kind of stay on it and do just enough to get it over the second baseman's head. And that's about it.
His description that we will talk about for many, many years. It was in the 4th, by the way, that I was talking about. You led off with a hit by pitch, and Jones followed it with a strikeout. Anyway, and then he struck out the first time against Gackle when Gackle came into the ball game. But it was amazing to watch Jones come up in the big moments like that. Felt very reminiscent to Brad Cressy, and I don't mean to be too dated here, but it's been 25 years, but Brad Cressy is the second all-time leading home. Like when we look at the career home run hitters at LSU, and we've referenced this because of Jones, Eddie Furness is number 1, number 2 is Brad Cressy, number 3 is Jared Jones. Cressy was one of the greatest hitters ever at LSU. I mean, that's not hyperbole. He literally was one of the greatest hitters ever at LSU. And he went to the College World Series, and he was 0 for. Didn't get a hit against Texas in the first game. He didn't get a hit in their second game against Southern Cal. In the third game against Florida State, finally came up with a hit near the end of that game. He doubled off the wall. So he had 1 hit there, and then was 0 for against Stanford until the game-winning hit that scored Ryan Terrio to win the national championship. Brad Cressy was an amazing hitter. Jared Jones is an amazing hitter. He's an amazing player. He's one of the greatest in the history of LSU baseball. One of the greatest power hitters in the history of LSU baseball. And you heard Jay Johnson gush about Jared Jones and him coming back and the leadership and everything he's provided to this team. But in that moment, after an 0 for 5 day with 5 strikeouts, to come back and have this performance when your team absolutely needed it the most, to have the homer in the game against UCLA to break out of that slump. You feel great for Jared Jones, who's been a great leader of this team, emotionally, but to do it on the field as well was awesome. So some of the biggest moments that we'll talk about forever Jared Jones, a homer to tie it at 3, and then the game-winning knock to win it in the bottom of the 9th. Zac Cowan, 5 1/3 when you had to have it. And LSU is off to the championship series, where they will face the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. We'll give you a first look at Coastal. Listen, we got time before we build up to this series. We'll give you a first look at Coastal, as both LSU and Coastal will have a couple of days off before they meet in the first game of the championship series on Saturday there at Charles Schwab Field in Omaha. Stay with us. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. I think the first question everyone is going to ask about Coastal and LSU is, all right, what are you going to do with the pitching staff? Well, for LSU, it's obvious. Cade Anderson threw against Arkansas this past Saturday. He will throw game 1 against Coastal on Saturday. He'll be on full rest. He's the best pitcher in the country. He might be the first pitcher taken in the draft, first player taken in the draft. You'll have Cade Anderson queued up, full rest, ready to roll against Coastal, and you feel awesome about that. And then you'll have Anthony Ianson, who will be on extra rest, who will throw, after only throwing 44 pitches in the game that got weather delayed on Monday. He'll throw on Sunday for you and be 100% fully rested, ready to go. Kason Evans, who was awesome for you in the restart against UCLA, pitched on Monday. He will absolutely be available in whatever capacity you would need him behind Anderson on Saturday or Ianson on Sunday. I mean, I could lay out a best case scenario where Cade Anderson gives you 7 1/3. Great. Best case would be Cade Anderson gives you a complete game shutout, but 7 1/3, and Kason Evans comes in, gets you the last 5 outs. And then you go into Sunday with Anthony Ianson and Chase Shores and everybody else you need at your disposal to try to go win a national championship. Now, for Coastal, this is a very good baseball team. Coastal, if you have the time or tolerance or care to go back and check, you can. You don't have to. You can take my word for it. Coastal was my pick to come out of the other half of the bracket once the College World Series was set. But if we go back to the start of this tournament, the 2 regionals that we all said were the toughest regionals in the country, one was Coastal, and 2 was Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss did not make it out of their regional, as we all saw. Murray State made it out of there. Murray State made it all the way to Omaha. But Coastal had a regional where they drew Florida in their regional. Florida was one of the hottest teams in the country at that time. And my pick was Florida to win that Coastal Carolina and Conway, South Carolina, to win that regional. So I was wrong there. But once they got to Omaha and I watched Coastal in that regional where they beat Florida and they advanced, and then I watched Coastal against Auburn, it was very clear that's not just a team that is a good story. That's a good baseball team. And that's a veteran baseball team, which is maybe the most impressive part of what Coastal's been able to do is, or most impactful part, is you got a lot of seniors and redshirt seniors on that Coastal Carolina team. They are 56-11, y'all. 56-11. They've won 26 consecutive games. Think about how amazing that 2008 streak was for LSU, winning 23 consecutive games. Coastal's already at 26 consecutive games on the season in league play in the Sun Belt, albeit the Sun Belt. They were 26-4. Well, when you're a dominant team, you say it's a Sun Belt, and it is. But when you're a dominant team, you dominate the Sun Belt, and they did. They were 27-3 at home, but they were 19-7 on the road. They were 10-1 in neutral site venues. That includes the postseason, which we've seen right now. They did play Kansas State and Washington earlier this year, beat them all. They lost 9-2 in a midweek against Alabama. I'm sorry, that was a weekend where they played Alabama, Ohio State, and NC State. They lost to Bama 9-2, and then beat Ohio State, and then beat up NC State 10-3. And they played Wilmington, and they played Rutgers out of the Big Ten. And they played North Carolina, where they lost 5-4 in 11 innings. They played East Carolina in a weekend series where they won 2 out of 3. They played Wake Forest, lost 16-7. They were run ruled. But the point is, they played Clemson and beat Clemson 8-2. You look up and down the schedule, this is a team that really challenged themselves and had to, because they were trying to earn a national seed. They beat Clemson later in the season 5-3, so they played them twice. The point being, when you look at the college baseball RPI, Coastal Carolina currently is the number 2 RPI in the country. Now, this includes postseason, but it all counts. They're 56-11. They're 5th in non-conference strength of schedule. And Their non-conference RPI is 3. They've played 18 quad 1 games. They're 12-6. They're 8-3 against quad 2. What dings them is the amount of games they played against quad 3 and 4, because they're playing in the Sun Belt. They played 23 quad 3 games and 15 quad 4 games. Like, by comparison, LSU played 4 quad 3 games and they played 23 quad 4 games. Now, it's because you play a lot of those crappy midweek teams, but it's why it can build up like that. And your pre-conference was embarrassing. LSU's non-conference strength of schedule, for example, not that it matters at this point. I mean, it's what it is. The field is set and all, but LSU's non-conference strength of schedule, this is including what you've done already in the postseason, is up to 161, which are 161st in the country in non-conference strength of schedule. It's going to be imperative to look at Coastal Carolina's pitching staff. Coastal, the name that we need to know that we're going to have to keep an eye on is Jacob Morrison. He is he's their ace pitcher. He is fantastic, but he did throw on Sunday, so it's very likely that he would be on full rest on Sunday against Anthony Hines. And he is 6'8". He's got a 2.08 ERA, so in 104 innings on the season. Riley Eichhoff, their number 2, threw on Wednesday to advance Coastal to the championship series. So Cameron Flukie likely gets the ball first against Cade Anderson. Good luck to him. But as the week goes along, we'll talk much more about the matchup between Coastal Carolina and LSU, as we'll have both Thursday and we'll have Friday full on to get you set for LSU and Coastal. Game 1 will be Saturday there at Charles Schwab Field in Omaha, Nebraska. And we will be right here counting you down on Locked On LSU. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. It is Locked On LSU. We're counting you down all the way to the end of the College World Series, where the Tigers are trying to hoist championship trophy number 8. Locked On LSU, your team every day.